What is going on, everyone? It's your guy, Cole Jackson, back here on Road Graders. Welcome back into the Baltimore War Room, and we are going to be getting you set up for the 2025 Scouting Combine. The first stop in the draft is Mobile and the All-Star Games, the East-West Shrine Bowl, all that good stuff. The second stop is going to Indy for the NFL Combine. So we're going to be talking about some of the key players, 10 players that you need to take a look at to be ready for this matchup. Before we dive into it, thank you to BetUS for sponsoring this video. BetUS wants to know, what do you think the team should focus on first? Obviously, that will be looking towards free agency. So drop a comment down below. And to get in on the action with BetUS, you can go over, use promo code YouTube150 and get in on all of the great action they have. While there is no NFL football right now, obviously, you can get in on college basketball, NBA, NHL, all that good stuff. So go over there, and thank you to BetUS for sponsoring. Obviously, guys, you are excited for this video, hit that like button, hit subscribe if you're new here. And we are going to be talking about the NFL Combine, getting you set up. And one thing I want to highlight, because I always talk about kind of what my philosophy towards the Combine is. You'll hear a lot about risers and fallers, and it definitely impacts draft status. But really what the Combine is to me is more information, more data points for us to consider going through the draft process. It's not that if someone runs bad, they don't lack athleticism. You look, there's tons of exceptions out there. Orlando Brown Jr. is probably one of the best. One of the worst, absolute worst Combine performances we've seen in recent memory, and he had no issues going on to be a productive NFL player. So it's their data points. They're not, I don't think it should take guys off your board, but it will check boxes. You want to see certain measurements. You want to see certain 40-yard dashes. A lot of teams do have benchmarks. I'm not big on the benchmark specifically, but I'd be lying if I said NFL teams don't have those. They're looking to check boxes, and so some of these top prospects, you won't see tests because they have nothing to do but hurt their draft status. And so what I want to focus in on is 10 guys that I think have an opportunity to really boost name recognition. So we're not going to be, we'll look at some fringe first rounders, but it's going to be mostly that kind of like 30 to 70 ranked guys that I think there's a couple, diamonds in the rough that I think are going to really make a name for themselves with their testing. But I really want to focus on guys that could really pop up. And so we're going to dive into it right here. And we're going to start with offensive tackles to watch for. So on the left here, we have Donovan Jackson. Now, this is a guy that I think is a really interesting name to watch for Baltimore Ravens fans, because he is one of the ideal picks that you could get, because what happened this year is he was a 3-year starter at left guard. When Josh Simmons got hurt, he kicked out to left tackle and looked pretty good. So, is he an offensive tackle? Is he an offensive guard? I have him here as a tackle, but I think he's a guy that the Ravens would draft, play at guard right away, retain Ronnie Stanley in free agency, and then Donovan Jackson becomes your long-term tackle guy, or an option to do that, to kick out to left tackle while competing at the guard spot with Andrew Voorhees and Daniel Falele. So taking a look at Jackson, he's obviously a national champion, but he was a highly touted guy, number 1 ranked guard in his high school year. He was the number 1 player in the state of Texas and the number 17 overall player in that entire class. He won a high school 4A title as a junior at Epsical High School in Houston, 2-time first team All Big Ten, as well as a 3-time OSU Scholar athlete, 32 consecutive starts at left guard before kicking out to left tackle. So a ton of experience. And, if you compare, because Bruce Feldman puts out the freaks list, and a lot of that will include what he's heard. It's in The Athletic. I'll drop a link down below so you can go check it out, but it'll include a lot of guys that he's heard reports on for their testing numbers. So a lot of the numbers I'll be referring to in terms of measurements, it's coming from that list because he puts it out there. So if you look at the 2024 Combine, the fastest 10-yard split, if any, O-line was Duke's Jacob Monk with a 1.66, and Jackson clocked 1.59 in his 10-yard split last year, making him, like, his 40 will be up there amongst the fastest for offensive linemen. This year, he's also vertical 30 inches and broad jump 9.7. So that would have been upper tier of 2024 NFL linemen. And then he brings a ton of traits that you want in a top offensive lineman. He's athletic and powerful, plays with good pad level. A lot of those prerequisites that you want to try and have. Really, what Jackson's limitations have been is technique wise. So I think he's really going to flash with his athletic abilities and his power abilities. He's got really good lift numbers, should do well probably in the bench press. He's going to show pretty good explosiveness through the vert and through the broad. If he tests all those, obviously, none of these guys are guaranteed to test everything. But I think he's going to be one of those guys that's going to be that fringe first rounder. And with the Baltimore Ravens picking at 27, absolutely one of those options. The other guy, Ariante Ursery out of Minnesota. He logged 38 straight starts at left tackle for the Golden Gophers. So just one of those guys battle tested in the Big Ten, playing top competition through, especially a lot of good edge rushers coming out of the Big Ten over the last few years. So very well battle tested. Obviously not in an elite offense at Minnesota, but, holding it down and doing all those great things. He's originally a 3-star recruit at a Ruskin High School in Kansas City. Track star there as well. He threw shot put, discus, and javelin. He was a 4th in the state championship for shot put. Took over the starter in 2022, held on to it. He won the Big Ten Remington Award as the best O-lineman in the Big Ten last year to go with first team All Big Ten, as well as second and third team All-American placements by different news outlets, several academic placements as well. Looking at his measurements, squat of 640 pounds, bench press 412, did a 409-pound hang clean this offseason. But it's really his speed that's going to shock people. We just talked about Donovan Jackson flashing that 10-yard split. He got flagged at 1.52 on his 10-yard split and clocked in at 18.34 miles per hour on the GPS time. He also put in a 27.5-inch vertical and a 9.2 broad and a pro shuttle time of 4.61. So he's got the chance really just to, again, run fast and really pop. And I know 40-yard dashes for offensive linemen aren't really going to be what makes or breaks it. How often are they running 40 yards? But it just shows that upper tier athleticism, right? Some of that explosiveness. So that's really what to take a look at. Ursery, it was built in the lab for left tackle. He's big, physical, mean, long-limbed. He's that complete package. I think he's pretty scheme diverse. I'm kind of surprised he's not seen as a first-round prospect right now. I don't know if it's just that lack of name recognition coming out of Minnesota, but I think this combine is going to really put him on the map and really boost him up a little bit. So, big thing with him is, again, similar to Donovan Jackson, technique limitations. He uses a ton of two-hand strikes, gets him into problems, especially in his recoveries, because when he's throwing that outside hand, two-hand strikes, if it doesn't land perfect, he's able to get ripped and give up that short corner on late edge rushes. So we'll take a look to see how he tests, but these are two guys that I think are very much in play for the Ravens, two guys that they'll need to have their eyes on depending on how free agency goes, and two unique guys, one that could come in and play guard right away, one that could come in and be a tackle right away. Moving into offensive guards to watch, we have Dylan Fairchild. He is obviously out of the University of Georgia, by way of West Forsyth High School in Cumming, Georgia, just north of Atlanta. Didn't go far. When he was recruited to Georgia, he was the second-ranked offensive guard prospect and 97th in the country when he came out. He stayed home, spent 2 seasons with Todd Monken, who was the OC there before he joined the Ravens. The first, he was a redshirt. The second, he was just a reserve O-line, so he didn't play a ton under him, but familiar with the kind of offense he runs. Monken would know quite a bit about Fairchild as well. In 2023, he had starts at left guard and right guard before spending all of 2024 at left guard. Former 2-time Georgia State heavyweight wrestling champ, which you guys know I gravitate towards these wrestling backgrounds. Tyler Linderbaum was one of those guys. It's such a natural fit for offensive linemen. And he went 67-0 with 67 pins in his junior and senior years of high school. So he's just one of those natural freaks, and he plays like it. A lot of the attention's going to Tate Ratledge, who played left guard, played right guard this year for the Bulldogs, and super solid guy. I love both those Georgia guards. But Dylan Fairchild has a way to get on the map. He is 6'5", 315, really good size, really good sand in his pants. Bench press 440, squatted 570, power cleaned 370. He also had a 26-inch vert and 9.2 broad, which is very good for an offensive guard. So this is, again, another guy that I think is, seen as a bit of a mid-rounder, but could be one of those guys that moves up. And the thing about Dylan Fairchild is I see him as not an immediate, I want to say an immediate because that means week 1. I see him as a quick starter. Like within his first year, I could see him taking over a starting spot because I see a really high floor. The question is, how high is that ceiling? How high is that athletic profile? We know he's powerful. How high can he go up athletically? That's really what's going to be the difference between him as a 4th rounder, him as a 3rd rounder. The combine is the perfect spot for him to really kind of play into that. This next guy, first small school guy. This is, if you guys are fans of the TV show Yellowstone, Marcus Weir will be right up your alley. He's from Billings, Montana, which is really close to where that show is based on. I'm literally watching it right now, so I had to mention it. He stays home to play for Montana State after leading his high school to a single A state championship in the state of Montana. Was also all conference and shot put. He became Montana State's first ever 2-time first team All-American offensive lineman. And that's obviously FCS All-American, not FBS. Got his opportunity to show what he could do at the Shrine Bowl. Looked really good, a lot of good reviews, and now he'll get to show that athleticism and strength on the big stage. Marks of 600 pounds in his squat, 375 in his clean, and his vertical at 31 inches. A guy that I think he's going to really boost up. He's known as for his pass protection skills. He was charted with just 9 pressures across 762 pass block snaps in 3 years. None of them were sacks. He didn't allow a sack in 3 years. Again, obviously competition playing into the fold here, but after getting that Shrine Bowl look against better competition, and now he gets to show the combine what he can do. So super excited to see what he can do. Need to double check that he'll be participating in drills, or if he'll just be doing some of the interview pieces. So interested to see how that plays out. Moving into the edge players that I think the Ravens should be looking at. Jordan Birch. This was one guy. He was one of the highest touted prospects in the last few years. He was out of Hammond School in South Carolina. He was a consensus 5-star, top 5 on every list. He came in at 188 all-time in the 24/7 Sports all-time composite rankings. So obviously 188 is pretty high, but that's all-time. So one of the best high school prospects to ever come out. Come into South Carolina, played there as a true freshman, got an extra year of eligibility due to COVID. 2021, he goes in, gets 3 sacks, 60 tackles, really more of an edge setter than that true pass rusher. But then after 2022, he enters the portal, transfers to Oregon, has 27 total pressures last year with 3 sacks, then 10 sacks and 32 total pressures this year. So one of those things where we just kind of seen him build up. I don't think he ever quite hit the hype, but he's gotten better every year he's played. And he is just one of those guys when you watch that, and I've noticed it watching some Big Ten offensive linemen, he just stands out with his disruptiveness. He's super explosive. And I think is a guy that this was made for him, right? Like that, he was so highly touted because of his athleticism, and you can see it in the numbers he's put up. Last offseason, he measured his vert at 35 inches, hit at 20.75 miles per hour on the GPS. Also squatted 685 and a sumo deadlift of 685. So those are some insane numbers, shows his explosiveness. I think he's going to absolutely tear up those drills, and it's really going to be about, can they get the get the production out of him to match the athleticism. Moving into our next edge player, Landon Jackson, attended Pleasant Grove in Texarkana, Texas. He was named Texas Sports Writer 4A Defensive Player of the Year before committing to LSU, transferred to Arkansas after 1 year, and this is the kind of guy that built in a lab, 6'7", 280 with the athleticism that he has. He topped out at 20.4 miles per hour last year, broad jump 10.2, 34-inch vert. In the weight room, he's power clean 350, bench 375, and squatted 305. So just that size with that athleticism is what teams are going to fall in love with. Landon Jackson is the exact guy that just comes out of this combine. Very different than Jordan Birch. Jordan Birch is that smaller, explosive guy. Landon Jackson's kind of that 6'7" guy that can be a power edge, right? And so the big thing with Landon Jackson's career is really his injuries. He tore his ACL in high school in 2018, had a broken ankle in 2020 in high school as well. 2021, he had a leg injury, missed time at LSU, and he also missed time this year. So that's really what's hurt his stock the most, but he's really your bigger body power rusher. Teams will have to decide if they want him to be a 5-tech D-line or an outside pass rusher, but with the Ravens and their diversity in their front, I think it's the kind of guy, if he tests as well as he could, it's going to be a really interesting decision on him. He just has all those traits that they'll fall in love with. Moving into interior defensive line, taking a look at some of the big fellas in the middle. Again, not highly touted guys. Some of the more mid-round guys. We're looking at Ryan Mills. He is an older prospect. He's going to be 24 when he's drafted. He's a fifth year, who's a 4-star recruit out of Lake Forest High School in Illinois. Top 150 of his recruitment class, was also a competitor in shot put and discus. And he's played regularly since his time in 2020 as a true freshman. Like, it's kind of crazy. You go back and he played, he started the game in the college football semifinal against Alabama. And I was kind of curious, like, who was on that Alabama team in 2020? You click on, it's Mac Jones, Brian Robinson, Jalen Mullen, Devontae Smith, which really makes you feel old because they feel like NFL veterans now. And that just really shows Ryan Mills has been playing college football for the last 5 years. So it's just one of those interesting things. And he has been a model of consistency. If you look at his last 3 years, 4 sacks, 23 pressures, 2022. 3 sacks, 32 pressures in 2023. 8 sacks, 34 pressures this year. So he's just gone up and up and up, slowly, but just super disruptive, super powerful. And he's been on Feldman's Freaks list 2 years in a row, which really just kind of shows he dropped down 11 pounds from last year, got down to 295, but he benched the same at 445 and squatted 580. Also had a vert jump of 32 and a broad of 9 feet. So, this is a guy that's gonna make an impact this week, this coming week, and I think he projects well as a 4-tech, and it'd fit really nicely in the Ravens rotation, providing that extra secondary pass rush to Matabike and to Travis Jones. So big thing to watch with him. He did get hurt in the college football playoff this year. So is he going to participate in drills? I think he needs to. I think he'll be pushing to, because as an older prospect, and that's one of the things about him as a prospect, being an older guy, he is going to lose a little bit of value there. It's going to drop him down in terms of where he's drafted, but it's a really good opportunity to get a guy that can contribute right away, which is what the Ravens need. Older, more developed body. He's not going to be growing athletically. It's going to be about getting better as a football player. But with his disruption abilities, I think it's a really good fit. Then we have Jordan Phillips, which a lot of you guys will be familiar with. Obviously, a lot of you are Terps fans. So he's a standout wrestler and weightlifter at Ocoee High School in Florida. Saying that wrong. Originally committed to Tennessee before transferring to Maryland. Started 11 games in 2023. Recorded 28 tackles, 1.5 tackles for a loss. Sophomore campaign, you see that big jump, getting 29 tackles. Primary aligned as a 1-tech, so he's one of those nose guards. So this is really one of those guys, if Michael Pierce retires, the Ravens could take a look at. And he reminds me a lot of Pierce. Shorter guy, plays the 1 technique, and just super explosive. You guys follow Ryan Davis, who's one of the coaches at Maryland, on Instagram. He posts a lot of the weight room videos. And you can see him squatting 665, power cleaning 365, and he had an overhead press of 365 for 2 reps. Like, beast stuff. Short guy, explosive, will blow up the 1 gap. Again, he is a nose tackle. Not necessarily what I'm looking for, but if the Ravens want to replace Michael Pierce in their rotation with Travis Jones, and I think they do prioritize having 2 nose guards that can kind of run out there and keep things going, I think Jordan Phillips will be on their radar. And I think when you consider being a nose tackle at his size, I think his athletic numbers pound for pound are going to be very, very good. Then we look at DBs. We're going to start here with Nick Emanwari. He was a graduate from Irmo High School in South Carolina in 2022. Started as a linebacker, which I think that's one of the most interesting pieces. So he actually wasn't ranked very highly coming out. He was like 58th at safety and 665 overall, and he proved those wrong. As a freshman in 2022, he replaced RJ Roderick in the first series of the season. Roderick misses, the rest of the season or gets supplanted as the starter. Emanwari goes on, starts the rest of the season, ends up a true freshman All-American, and finishes off his career as a junior by being a first team. He was a true freshman All-American. Then as a junior this year, he finishes as a first-team All-American. So just success has followed him throughout his entire career. He was basically nominated or was a winner of every major DB award that you could possibly get. And you look at his numbers from last year. Broad jumped 11.4, vert jumped 42 inches, 24 reps at 225 on the bench, squatted 565, and has hit almost 23 miles per hour on the GPS. So this is one of those guys that Ravens fans are going to absolutely fall in love with. He can run up and bang in the box. He can cover. He can kind of do it all and would be that kind of third safety with our Darius Washington and Kyle Hamilton that we know the Ravens care about. Like, this is a position that if they sign our Darius to an extension or tender him as an RFA, it doesn't take safety off my list. They will look for it. They will look for BPA opportunities. And Nick Emmanwori has that opportunity to be a BPA at 27 with the way he's going to test. Some thoughts that he may not run, I actually really hope he does, because I think he's going to absolutely dominate those competitions. Last guy, more of a late round guy. He's going to be kind of my late round focus as a corner and a kick returner. Tommy Hill out in Nebraska. He was a top 200 recruit, number 12 cornerback in 2021 after he won a natty for Edgewater in Florida. He spent this year battling his injury, so his tape this year isn't very good, but he's a really interesting guy because he's played both ways. He's played receiver and corner, and he has a kick returner resume. So he's just one of those special teams guys that really intrigues me. He looks like he's going to run in the 4.3s according to Matt Ruley, his coach, and he has a 42-inch vertical according to Ruley as well. So just one of those guys that I think is going to test extremely well. So these are 10 guys that I want you guys to be focused on. I think they have major implications on the Baltimore Ravens. I think it would be a great fit. That's all I have for you guys. Thank you to BetUS for sponsoring. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this breakdown. Hit subscribe if you're new here. Be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. Peace out, everyone.